It's a high-tech conversation
and a low-tech topic.
live on the World Wide Web via Zoom. Bench Talk 101.
In case everybody's not paying attention, I'm Jeffrey Fowler. No, I'm not. I'm Chester Spier, and I'm in the States, and we're trying something new this Bench Talk 101 because I'm going to be interviewing someone that's a phenomenal woodworker and so on and so forth. I'll do the introduction in a second. I wanted to preface the whole thing with that Bench Talk 101 is a group that was started by Jeffrey Fowler, and due to the COVID situation and the lack of people being able to join together as woodworkers tend to do at conventions and other meetings. And so because of that, they created this group, and it has grown exponentially since. It started in the UK, and it has traveled all the way around the world, to include us, we here in the States. And we're very happy that it's continuing. We're nearing our year's anniversary, and we're excited about that. So without any further hesitation, I'm going to pass it over to Chester Spier, who's going to do an introduction for this week's guest. And I hope you all enjoy it. There may be some hiccups in the system because we're trying some things new. I'm going to be sharing his photographs, and we're going to be working all that out. So here we go. Let me start with the classic Derek introduction style. And let me say that I have the extreme honor. I'm reading this because I had to write it out ahead of time, otherwise I might flub it. So here we go. I have the extreme honor of introducing you all to one whom I consider a friend, and am grateful for that friendship. To try and describe Jeff would take more than this program to do. You can learn a bit about him from the article about him in Garrett Hack's The Hand Plane book. I'm sure you're all familiar with that. He's listed under contemporary tool makers. He was well known for his reed planes. Reed was the name that he gave to that line of planes that he developed to improve upon the Norris style of planes that he had been exposed to early in his working career. He was an early proponent of cryogenic treating of plane irons, and there's so much more. Some of his woodworking has been published in more than one of the fine woodworking design books. He has a discerning eye for design, and his accomplishments are as varied as are his experiments with planes and what we consider to be truisms as to their setup, sharpening, and use. Being nearly the same age as I am, you must try to put some of the work that you'll be seeing, particularly of his woodwork, of the earlier things, into the context of the period that these things were created. He is a pusher of boundaries and a self-admitted problem solver. And so let me introduce you all to Jeffrey Warshafsky. Hello, Jeff.
Thank you very much. It was very, very kind. Awesome. I've been very lucky, had a bunch of different roads I could go down, and had a lot of fun.
Well, Jeff has supplied us with quite a few links to the different people that he learned from in school in Boston. He's in New England area is where he lives, while I'm down in the South and of the United States. And we're going to add those links on the broadcast rather than now into the chat. So we're going to do the system the way that we usually do it. If everybody will add their name to the chat toward the end, we'll go back through that list later to do the questions. But we expect that this presentation is going to go on a little further than most because there's so much to cover. So I'm going to be sharing his pictures, and we'll talk through some of this. But I want to start with Jeffrey. We're going to do it in an interview style. Jeffrey, I'd like to talk about first as a child and your but that you didn't find that suiting you. And so if you could tell a little bit about your schooling that you went.
Sure, absolutely, Chet. Yeah, I came out of high school, went to college. I went to Boston University. I was a commuter there, and sure, pre-med, let's go do this. Well, I learned pretty quick that I wasn't as smart as I thought I was. I didn't have the background in study or the discipline in my youth to do any of that. And I cobbled through a year or so of that at BU and realized that wasn't for me. There was no way I'd get in med school. There's no way I'd get the grades and stuff like that. And I stumbled on PIA, Program in Artisanry at BU, and really interested me. And I wasn't a woodworker before then. Yeah, I did stuff with my dad and my grandfather, stuff around the house and all sorts of stuff like that. And as a kid, I worked at a local marina, and yeah, we built stuff. I never built anything, but I was always exposed to it. And it really interested me. And, and as a big university, you transfer in. I just wrote the papers, transferred in. Next thing I know, I was in the class. But BU oversold, and I realized that they were going to cut people out of the program. So I had to look further. But while I was at the program, I met two just awesome people. Jere Osgood, there'll be a link to him. He's currently in New Hampshire as a craftsman. He just does amazing stuff. He just was fantastic in the work he did.
I just want to interject here, Jeffrey, that Jere Osgood is a very well-known, internationally known furniture maker, considered a studio furniture maker, and he had learned from Frid earlier, and a lot of his design work is sculptural style of design. So a lot of it is very organic forms, and you'll see that as we progress, that Jeffrey, from learning from him, has suited nicely into that style.
Yes, and Jere was awesome. There was also another great cabinet maker, more of a carver and stuff, Dan Jackson. I didn't spend much time with him. He was based out of Philadelphia. I believe he's still with us, and he does awesome work.
Now he's famous for the unicorn rocker, which is that big life-size unicorn that's sculpted, and I think that's in a museum somewhere at this point.
I believe you're correct, and it was great to have these teachers. I mean, it was just fantastic. I mean, while I was at BU, I took part of one of the courses we had to take was at the local Museum of Fine Arts, and the MFA in Boston has a fantastic early American furniture collection, and it was just gave me this fantastic foundation of what the folks were doing. Actually, in my neighborhood, I mean, the next town over, Salem, Mass, there were some great people. Go down to Rhode Island, Townsend, Rhode Island was making some fantastic stuff. Many folks in Boston, and there they all were, right at the museum, and we had a class there.
Can you mention, Jeff, about when you went to the museum with him, with your teacher, who was John T Kirk, how you were able to examine the furniture?
Oh, yes.
Actually get in and take the drawers out. And can we talk a little bit about that?
Much to the docent's surprise, we were able to do that. And there would be 8 or 12 of us sitting around a museum piece. The museum piece comes out, and we turn it around, take it apart, look at it, dust it off, and put it back. And we talked about it. It was just great to see these things up close and personal. These are true treasures. And it was just fantastic. But that came to an end pretty abruptly as the university oversold the program. I would have stayed with it. Some great folks came out of that program. It was really good. So I had to look further, and I stumbled upon Ian Kirby, a transplanted Englishman over here, and he was setting up a school. And I said to my father, "This is what I want to do." And my father had pretty much thrown up his arms and said, "Oh, you'll have a trade." Okay. So schooling continued with Ian. And I'll never forget my first day walking in there. It was an old mill building in New England. And I'm looking around, and I don't see much. I don't see anything. I see in the far corner this large stack of bowling alleys. Okay. And
the floors of the bowling alley. The floors in the
Yes, the
alleys.
The floorings, the actual alleys. Many of the bowling alleys around here were very, very prominent, but that died off, and they would sell the buildings, and you could get the wood. It's all rock maple, all hard maple, all tongue and groove put together in small bits and pieces. And we had some crowbars and some hammers. I had just a smattering of tools, and we had to disassemble them and reassemble them as benches using hand tools. And that's how it started. And we made benches, we made separated areas for classrooms. We found some some old windows and stuff and some doors, and we just cobbled it together and made a school. Basically, we were his workers to make a school, and we were paying for the opportunity.
So at this point, I'm going to start sharing some pictures. And Shrenik or Jeffrey, if you can, there you go. Perfect.
Oh,
Now this is I know not related to Ian Kirby, but this was when you were doing your drawings and design. You were doing it like I did on a drafting table, and you had
actually, Chet, I made that when I was at school at Kirby. We needed a T-square. All a T-square has to do is be a straight line. It doesn't even have to be 90 degrees. You sort your paper associates to the straight line. While other folks were going out and buying things, I didn't have the money. I saw some wood, I made one. It's as simple as that.
But now, why did you do the angle on one side and the straight? Just a design feature?
I'm pretty sure that's the way the board was, and I was being lazy, and yeah, that form follows function, and yeah, it became a T-square. It wasn't a lot of thought, believe me. This was I made that a long time ago.
I like it. I like it. Now,
oh gosh, when I actually worked for Ian for a while, making a whole line of furniture. Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
And if you could explain the style of furniture that you were doing with Ian, just as far as the slate and that sort of.
Sure.
And what year is this? What period are we talking about?
This is at the end of my schooling. We're a little out of sequence here. It's a little end of it. This is probably 1978, 79 vintage. Ian had designed a line of furniture, got with another person, Jere Osgood, and was selling furniture. And he hired me to build a lot of it. And it was kind of simple. We made plywood boxes and clad them with slates. And those are old roofing slates. We were finding folks in Vermont that were harvesting and cleaning up and collecting old stuff. I'd go drive a pickup truck, get a load, bring them back. I made a shear. I cut them square and put mastic down, put them down, grouted them, finished them, and we made there's a whole bunch of different furniture out of stone. So
these are all a little bit out of time sequence. So if you could just basically, this is, are these still considered a waterfall table or a waterfall bench, or
a little Nakashima there, maybe just a little.
And it's a little early with the live edge, isn't it?
Yes. That was one of the first pieces I made. Actually, that was a locally grown piece of butternut. My father found somebody that had some butternut. I said, "What, Dad?" We went for a ride and came home with a bunch of butternut.
Nice. Now this piece is really, and I think everybody will start to see different influences on your work. These were not professional pieces, as I understand. These were just pieces for your own sake?
Yes. I mean, that was an assignment at school, and that's what came out for that. That's a cherry maple table with a little bit of walnut splines in there.
So this is earlier, before the Ian Kirby furniture.
No, these are with Ian Kirby. That chair was with Ian Kirby. That chair has a very interesting story to it. That chair was an assignment, and I technically failed the assignment at school. So we were all given an assignment to make an elegant chair. Not one of us succeeded. Now, we didn't understand the assignment, and this is actually important in design. When you're given an assignment to be elegant, and there were a few other criteria, they're a little escaping me because this was a long time ago. And no, I made a nice chair, blah, blah. There's not a 90-degree mortise and tenon in there. It drove me crazy, but I didn't succeed in the assignment. That was an actually failure. We all failed. Not one of us succeeded in making an elegant chair.
Because of the elegance.
I would define elegance different. That's a nice rosewood and oak occasional table, small table. I was having fun exploring some positive and negative space.
So those are actually openings that go down through, correct?
Correct. So those are complete openings, and that's a rosewood veneer, book match rosewood veneer on each pie section.
Very nice.
So this is probably one of the first tools I ever made. That's the oak glue up before I spun the router around it to make it round to match the insert that was going in there. And I went to a local machine shop and drew that up and had them make a piece of metal with a shaft in it so I could spin the router.
And is that on a slight angle, or is it just built up so that it?
No, everything was 90 and true. And amazingly, when I was done with both of them, all my calculations of the router and everything, it went in. I tapped it in, and it went in and it glued. It was just amazing. I was just thrilled. Excellent glue joint. I was lucky.
Always nice when that works.
Oh yes.
Now that's an interesting chair there.
My education with Kirby was based on the idea that we're taught design and we'll do things with wood and fabric and other things because they're easy to manipulate. But I would say I wasn't taught as a cabinet or maker. I was taught more as a furniture maker and to use different materials and not be afraid of them.
This reminds me of a variation on a this end up furniture style. Somewhere back in the 80s, some college students in North Carolina came up with making furniture out of pallets, and it became a huge thing, actually a big business. But the joinery in this is very similar. I like the gap that you left, though.
This is very, very simple joinery. That it spent more time in the drafting board than it did on the bench. Went together very quickly. That's just again, a friend of mine needed a dining table that expanded. There had leaves in it. I just exploring positive and negative space. I like the way it was on the drafting board, and became a table. Actually, that was the first thing I ever used a spray finish on, Chet. I actually learned how to spray finish on that one.
What are the legs made of? What type?
The legs are painted wood, and the top parts are actually inlays of slate. I had some black slate.
Very nice. Now, this is a failure, as I understand.
Absolutely. I did a set of dining chairs, and they were terribly under-engineered, and I don't think they lasted. They were mine for personal use with a dining table, and they didn't last much longer than a couple, 3-4 years before they were coming apart. I made too many compromises. Chairs, guys, need no compromises. Really.
Now, are those under the fabric? Are those hollow frames or solid?
Oh, they were solid. I just took solid bits of plywood, wrapped them with foam and fabric. Oh, that's the table and chairs.
I did put them in some sort of order. See, I did.
Thank you. There's an end shot of the table folks would like. If you could pop that one up next, maybe. Yeah, there we go. That's the table in my current dining room. So it's a pair of book-matched walnut tops and the sides, and they're only connected in 2 places. Again, playing with the spaces.
Now, I think we should take note of the armoire that's behind it. We'll see more of that in a little bit, but another interesting piece. Now, this is
James Craft gave that to me so I could put it in my portfolio.
Wasn't that nice of him? I was going to say there's a little bit of Krenoff in
just a smidge.
Yeah. I like the way you did the see-through mortises at the bottom, so you see the
yes, that was very simple joinery there, and I had some spalted maple that I used as in the field of the frame.
So yeah, that's beautiful. I was thinking it might have been pecan, the insets, but so that's all maple, all of the whole cabinet.
Yes, all maple.
And it was a cold day in your dining room that day. Now,
that's a current piece.
Yeah, they're not in
that lower cabinet was an exercise on the CNC machine. I was talking to where I currently work, my CNC engineer, and asked him about carving this, and that was just done on a CNC. That was all done.
Is all of the background spaces carved away? I'm assuming it's cherry.
Yeah, it's cherry. It was 6/4 cherry, and everything.
So those are not applied. they're not applied to the face.
No, that's carved out of the solid. I glued up the blanks and we carved it. We're starting to learn some stuff to do on the CNC.
Very nice. Yeah, I can't account for the order of some of these. This piece has a lot of interesting three-dimensionality to it that I love. This side panel.
Yeah, the side panel was my idea for a double raised panel. So I did that with a hand plane to make a double raised panel, but no frame around it. It's all dovetailed to the tops and top and bottom, and again playing with the different shapes in the doors. Those are two doors, and I just cut a whole bunch of different shapes and glued them together to make the door.
So the three-dimensionality in itself creates the handles for opening the doors as well.
Correct.
Yeah. Very, very nice. I really appreciate that part. And that's, I guess, along the same genre as this piece.
That's in my current kitchen. That's a simple glue up of different pieces of ash, and that's a big pantry in my kitchen.
Now, I don't know if everybody can see it, but in the two middle portions, there's a little ledge, and you see the two center pieces stick out, creating a handle as well. You can sort of see the shadow at the top of them right in here.
Yep.
What made you think of that?
I like playing with the patterns, and I like the shadows they create. That's what drives that type of design for me.
Very nice. And this is it opened.
Yeah, just a standard pantry with pull out shelves. Oh, that's a more current piece. That's a chest of drawers I did, and it's in my current bedroom. Cherry with Macassar ebony handles.
Is it a bow front or flat?
No, it's flat. It's flat. And it's quite tall. It is quite tall. It's a little past 5 feet tall. It's a very big unit.
So all of the, I don't know if everybody can notice, but the grains here run across. You matched all of the drawers to each other as you went up very nicely.
Yes. That comes from spending a lot of time at the museum watching. We spent a lot of time in school talking about how the grain would continue and how it would draw your eye and stuff. That was part of my foundation, and it's never left me, to make sure your grains keep your eye going where they need to go and what you do.
It looks like all of those pieces of woods also came from the same flitch, because they're all.
I believe they did. I believe they did when I laminated those up. That's a maple, a curly maple dresser for my daughter.
Now that little treatment on the legs on the right, that was just a design feature you came up on the draft.
Yes. That came off my drawing board, or actually my CAD program.
I like it. So very sculptural. And this is where I was saying, and that's why I wanted to bring into the idea about some of your teachers and your influences. It's not just about the form, the function, but it's also about the form and the sculptural aspects of it as an art piece as well as a piece of furniture.
Thank you. Yes. That's also in my bedroom, another cherry. So that particular one is solid wood. I always wanted to buy one piece of cherry and make a piece of furniture out of it. At one of my wholesale lumber yards, I found a really gorgeous board of 16-quarter cherry, and 96% of that is out of that board, that one whole cabinet. And
now, are those handles inlaid?
No.
Notch, or are they screwed from the back?
They're screwed from the back.
Now, this is one of my favorite of your pieces. This is just phenomenal. And Jeff and I were talking about influences, and we had a disagreement as to who influenced this, actually, didn't we?
I am pretty sure I saw something like that in fine woodworking. I'd have to dig through many, many years of it, but I'm pretty sure I saw something that always stuck with me. And I made that as a gift for my daughter, and I'm not letting her take it right now. I'm a bad father. But that was all really nice curly maple, and just a real fun project to do.
Now, does that leg pivot out, or
Yes. Sometimes straight lines don't do me very good.
the grain of the wood is amazing? And you made the handles, I'm assuming, also? Is that a rosewood or an ebony?
No, that was scrap rosewood from hand plane leftovers.
I think that's one of my favorite pieces of yours.
Thank you.
And this is the back of it?
Yes.
So there's some little side shelves on one side, it looks like, over here.
No, there's no side to it. You see the side of the drawer. I kept it open. So you actually see the drawer going on its runners. It's totally exposed, not joinery, exposed function, exposure on the side.
And so you actually took each end of the desk pretty much and cranked it forward. And
pretty much
pulled it forward.
Yes.
Very nice. Very nice.
Oh, so in we needed a new bathroom vanity. I had some teak left over from some work I was doing on some sailboats, and my wife came home with a planter from a local store, Filene's Basement in Boston, and I grabbed a piece of marble, and I needed to cut a half circle in the marble. That's Verde antique marble to put the planter in. And I went to some stone guys. Can't do that. Can't do that. No. I said, well, so can't tell me no. I did it with a fiber disc and made a lot of noise on a skill saw, and I cut a half round in it just fine. So nice. Yes, you can cut circles with a fiber disc and a skill saw to do it. Be outside, lots of hearing protection and dust protection. It's pretty. It's nice
because it gives you a shallow cabinet, but at the full depth of the sink by doing that half round rather than just sitting it on the top. And we're all familiar with shoji doors.
Yes, I've got a large Japanese influence. I very much like some of the stuff they've done, and shoji screens work very well in so many applications. That was a lot of fun to do.
And is this in your home?
Yeah, that's my current office. Just some current work I did. We needed some doors. So, and cherry is my favorite wood, absolutely. So those are very recent. I probably made those about 2 or 3 years ago. Cherry doors and frames.
I see a little bit of Frank Lloyd Wright with the offset squares and rectangles.
Yes.
And this, of course, is your deck that you had to do round.
Well, I'd never worked in redwood before, so I chose redwood to do it just because I'd never done it before, and it's got big curves, and that was just a ton of fun to do the framing and stuff. So, yeah, bigger projects. That was a blast to do.
And just some smaller items, end grain butcher blocks. This is a particularly nice piece. Is this a box or just sculptural?
That's a box. It's a jewelry box, a piece of burl cherry. And I will tell a secret here. When I would demonstrate my planes, I had that as a block, and the grain goes every which way. And I could plane it any way they wanted to get beautiful shavings, and people go, "Oh my goodness, oh my goodness." Well, cherry burl really planes really nicely, folks. So if you ever want to impress somebody, grab a cherry burl and plane it. You can't do wrong. This is probably this was in the a cribbage board I did pretty much after seeing some early Wendell Castle stack laminate work. I saw his work in 1975ish at a local museum, and somebody was asking about it, and that's what came out.
Well, that's who I thought had influenced the desk as well, because he was famous for those desks in odd shapes, but also I can totally see this because he did those sort of nebulous forms, floating sort of tables and chairs.
Yeah, absolutely. I had the great fortune to visit with Wendell one time at his studio and saw some of his stuff. Really had a strong impression on me. Oh my goodness.
And this is a beautiful painting.
Simple rosewood platter. Just a
Look at the
nice
color.
foot.
The color is amazing.
That's the wood, not me.
Now I'm not gonna, this is not yours. So I'm going to try to get out of this on my thing. And I want to talk about, while I'm trying to bring up the pictures, if you would talk about what happened to you and about the story in school with the Norris and how that wound up influencing you and having you do the bead planes.
Absolutely.
That's where we're going. So if you'll talk
Absolutely.
while I try to get rid of these pictures and go back to something.
So you can see my planes. When I was at school with Ian, he had a Norris plane in the tool crib. And of course, we all got to use it and stuff. And there's nothing not to like about one of them. I didn't know much about it at the time at all. But when I left and got on my own, I really wanted one. That drove me. I said, I got to have one of these. So I called around, and in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, there was an antique store. Again, this is 1980, we're talking. There was an antique store that had some English tools. And they said, come on up, we've got a Norris. So sure enough, I drove up. I put as much money as I could in my pocket and drove up. And yep, they had it. They had a Norris. I took it apart, took a look at it, and put it down. It was going to need a complete rebuild. It wasn't a user, and I wanted a user. So, and there wasn't much else that I could find locally or do. So that ended my my search to own a Norris, and that's what started me on my journey to make a plane similar. But a Norris let me down. When Kirby's Norris, I don't know any others than that. There was too much slop in it. I didn't like the slop in the adjustment mechanism, the way it held the screw and such. And it didn't sit well with me that everything was bedded in wood. I thought, in my infinite wisdom, that it should be bedded in metal. So my planes evolved in many different shapes and forms over the early years, but this is a raw casting. This is a reject, but you can see I'm bedded in cast iron. I have a center hole here for my adjuster, and this screw holds the rear tote in place. So my design came off the drawing board, and seeing some of the issues with a Norris drove me to this type of fabrication. I did play around with, these are just out of the corner of the shop, maybe making an infill like this. I don't know if you can see, I dovetailed the sides together, maybe doing that. Didn't like it. That was a reject. Maybe I'd play with stainless steel. Maybe I'd do something like this. Nah, didn't like this at all. This ended up as a not happening. Played with some other possibilities in wood. Again, rejected. I didn't like it, didn't work for me. So we ended up making castings. This is manganese bronze, and this is what it would look like right out of the foundry, what I would get before I would start machining. And then you get down to a machine surface.
Now, you told me a story I think is interesting where you asked your brother for help because your brother was an engineer and
yes.
What
So
did he tell you?
So it's in the 70s, late 78, 79 range. I'm starting out, and you need information. I don't know how to do this stuff. My brother is recent graduate from college. He's got a job. He's a manufacturing engineer, and he knows all about this stuff. So he would tell me, he would answer me very quickly, very, very succinctly. You're a woodworker. You make a piece of wood, you push it in a piece of sand, you take it out, you pour metal in, and you have what you need. Go to the library, read a book. And at that time, that was about the conversation we had. So sure enough, the library. And I read books, and yeah, it's really not that difficult to do. It's, okay, I'm a woodworker. I need to have some angles and some clearance. I need to have a few things to make a pattern. I can make a pattern. I have some mahogany, I can make a pattern. So not knowing a whole lot, I made some patterns and had them poured. I started off in cast iron. That was my first planes that I made, were cast iron. And I made some. And my machining, my metalworking skills were exceedingly poor. And they're still not very good. But there's lots of great machinists around there, a lot of small shops making stuff.
How many planes how many planes do you think you manufactured after getting the prototypes and coming to something that you liked? How many are there of your planes floating out there in the
128 or so ish, give or a few. A lot of block planes. People like block planes. I have absolutely no use for this plane daily. It's not, to me, it's a carpenter's tool. It's too heavy for your carpenter bench. If you're up on a ladder working, not a tool I would have, but people bought this. It also was my least costly tool, but these I sold the most of.
And the one behind that, I noticed there's 3 that are bronze. What is that one made of?
No, this one's cast iron, this one's bronze, and this one's bronze. This just has 2 different handles in it. This has hop hornbeam handle. This has Macassar ebony, and these handles were, I'm pretty sure, Indian rosewood.
And what's that little piece that's sitting there on the table behind the block?
Recently, there's a gentleman out of Australia, Henry Eckert Toolworks out of Australia, makes a fantastic little adjuster for many, many planes. And I bought it, and it works far superior than what I came with because there's a ball bearing here. And it just makes it super smooth and really nice. That is not my design at all. And he's very reasonably priced, sells all over the world, and it's just awesome. Nice picture. The manganese bronze polishes to just a fantastic finish. It mirror finish. It's very easy to do that.
That handle is gorgeous.
Well, thank you. The planes took on a life of their own. I never made money doing them. It was a labor of love. I probably produced them for the better part of 10 years. Want to go back to making them. There's improvements and things I want to do. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Now, this is the initial castings that
Yes,
you had, and one
yes,
of your
that
handles
is,
there.
I made a number 3, number 4, and a number 5 size plane.
So in this, we can actually see the front bun inset there, and the handle or tote, as they're sometimes called, on the left there.
Yep.
And so you were routing that?
The company that was selling my planes, a company out of New Hampshire, Mahogany Masterpieces, in, I'm going to get the date wrong, 96, 97, I'm not sure. I'd have to look. Opened up a store in California, and he wanted me to make commemorative sets. So I actually made a bunch of commemorative sets of everything to do. So that's why they got mahogany handles. I do not like mahogany for a handle.
Oh.
Yes, that was the set of planes I would make for him to do that.
So there we're saying 1987.
Yes, 87, there you go.
And it still has your adjuster knob on the back of the block plane.
Yes.
Original one, not the one you replaced. Now you progressed since this point, and that's not the piece. You made these little gems.
So I like going down roads, and I never thought I would have the good fortune to own some of the tools you see behind me, and I'd never thought I would find or be able to buy a the names kept for me. Either Gottlieb Pratt or Stratton Brothers level. Sorry, I forgot, my brain froze for a second. So I saw how they were made, and I said, gee, what if I made some? That might be a fun experiment. So simply and experiment exploring how they were made. I made the metal dovetail and slide into the wood and stuff. Just a lot of fun, just fun.
And how did you attach the bubbles in there? How are they maintained or held?
They're bedded traditionally with the plaster of Paris. Plaster of Paris, excuse me, plaster of Paris.
Now, this is a fascinating piece here. I've seen it before, but the guys have not seen this. But this is, if they notice, there's 4 different adjustments on that, 4 different rods. So if you'll explain how this came about.
Sure. I would find myself working with 3 or 4 marking or cutting gauges on my bench. And it got cluttered. I don't have a very big bench. And there's a great history of making 4-beam marking gauges, at least in America. I don't know if there's any English makers that did it, but some of the early folks would do it, and it really intrigued me. So so I made one.
And what's the purpose of the I think I know maybe the 4 square inlays that we're seeing in front of each bar that has a screw? Is that a saddle that goes underneath?
Correct. That's the wear bar for the screw as you tighten to go against the beam, so you're not marking up the beam with the screw head.
Beautiful.
Just a fun little. I had some scrap. Oh, just some more exercise. Guys, I like to make tools. It's obvious, and I like them to fit in my hand and to do things. So pad saws are not common around here. They're an English tool. We don't see them very often, but to put a hacksaw blade or a saber saw blade in a handle and use it to grab a piece of plastic that we would have around here, I didn't like. So I started making them, and then I needed a screw. I always needed a screwdriver to take my cap iron off my irons, and that's the one next to the vise holding one. So I made that. That's made with what we call a spade or a paddle bit. It's hardened, and you just regrind it to shape. I've got a screwdriver that for split nuts. The one on the far side is simply a hex head holder. I bought this cheap plastic thing for the holder, blew the plastic apart, and I had a holder and put it in. And the brass is what's called PEX, P-E-X fittings. They're a fitting that's used on plastic tubing and plumbing. So they're available at the local big box store, and it's a fun little lathe project. Guys, make them. They're fun. They're easy.
On the pad saws, obviously you have the blade going all the way through. So did you cut those in half, do the notch, and then re-glue them together before you turned it? Is that how you managed that?
Correct. You fill the notches either end so you can put it in your lathe, and then you take the fill out.
Very nice. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with this one.
This is simply a spill plane. I needed a spill plane, and I made one of a different style. And I made one that you push the wood across. It's flattened down. But I wanted to explore another possibility. And Chet was talking, and he said, well, I've got some blades. I'd like one. I said, good, you get one. I just don't have a blade. So he sent me some blades, and I reground the blade, explored some different angles, and had a lot of fun making another spill plane.
Now, this is interesting because we started off with you drawing on a drafting table, but this is not done on a drafting table.
No, I do all my work on a CAD program. I'm partial to SketchUp. It's a very simple, easy one to use. Doesn't matter what you use, but guys, I can almost get enough satisfaction doing what you see and not have to build it because that's the real one. That's what I actually ended up doing. Thanks, Chet. I can get enough satisfaction out of completing it on a computer that I almost sometimes don't make sawdust. There are a lot of things that are sitting on a computer that I got enough satisfaction exploring the design and making.
Very nice. We all know what those are.
Spills.
So the next topic that we're going to go to, and I don't know how many people know this. So if you could talk about how you wound up with this issue, having to have it in front of you. I'll give a little background. we're going to be talking about the Ray and Maria Stata Center, which is a 720,000 square foot for our people in the UK is 67,000 square meters. An academy complex that was designed by Frank Geary for the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And while I'm getting out of these pictures, I'd like you to talk about this building as far as your company and why it was up to you as an estimator to deal with these things. And then I'm going to bring up pictures so they can see it. If you could do that.
I ended up getting addicted to a paycheck, guys, and I'm currently a professional for the last 20 plus years in the architectural millwork trade, which is wood in a commercial building in the United States. We don't do flooring, but we make custom stuff. And the company I was working for at the time, not my current company, picked up the job to do the Ray and Marie Stata Center at MIT. I didn't know much about it, and I was tapped on the shoulder to be the project manager to do this. And oh my goodness, this was the most difficult and amazing and scary project you could ever imagine. We did things that I couldn't imagine doing and had to create things. So it was, his work is very sculptural. He's known for taking some napkins, crumbling some paper, and that's the shape of the building. And then his team needs to then make it into a building. And they would do this with a early version of computer design. We're talking around late 90s, early 2000, probably when this started. And it was a computer program called CATIA. And everybody had to work from the model to make the building. And it was just never ending. The things we did, the paneling and stuff.
Jeff, as an introduction for everybody, if they don't know who Frank Geary is, Frank Geary designed the Guggenheim Museum in Bilbao, the Disney Concert Hall in LA. He has works in almost every continent of the world. His work defies categorization, but in my own terminology, after looking at a lot of his work, it's surrealism. And what's interesting between Jeff and Geary, Jeff has a varied, I found that you have a varied sensibility as far as design. And I don't know if you even know this, but Geary designed a chess set, tableware, hockey trophies, software on design, jewelry with Tiffany, vodka bottles, bentwood furniture, and a wiggle side chair. So it's as varied as Jeffrey Warshafsky that you're talking to now. So Jeff, I'm going to share some of these pictures, and I hope everybody can understand the immensity of this, and I'll ask some questions about it. So Jeffrey's responsible for the panels, not the chairs. So Jeff, this is inside the center. This is one of the
yes, this is one of the auditoriums inside. It has custom wood paneling on the ceiling as well as the walls. And when Frank Geary designs an auditorium, he sculpts it for sound. And when he does that, the panels are either reflective or absorptive. And there's all sorts of stuff going on behind these panels. Many of these panels are 2 and 3 layers thick, having reflective and absorptive materials to shape the sound in order to do this. And that was crazy. It was just crazy. And he had to have truth in materials. So, and he had a particular hole pattern. We drilled all the holes in all those panels. Everything was made from scratch. That picture shows one of my nightmares. So when I would go into a room, this is where I would go when they were building it. And I would simply be there 5:30, 6 in the morning. Before I go to work, I'd stop by the building. I'd sit in there and sketch and try to understand what I had to do. But that's what I had to look at. I could use the 3D CATIA CAD program to see stuff, but I also had to see it in person in order to develop solutions.
Now, in this case, for everybody's benefit, we're looking through the scaffolding structure, and you have to sort of look through it to see the work that they have to do on those walls surrounding this scaffold.
Yes, that's the fireproofing on the structural beams of that room. And after that, there would be drywall and studs. So that's a particular room that has a whole bunch of angles into it. I think there was 30 or 32 in plan, pretty much a star shape that went off on an angle. And each one of those panels is approximately 8 feet. So you can get an idea of scale and scope.
And that is just, one is a window on the right, the other one is a skylight going up.
Yep, and the skylight had paneling all the way up too.
And just so everybody knows that the roundness of these is not due to the camera lens, but it's actually in the design. It's intrinsic to it. And so each panel, as I understand it, and Jeffrey will correct me if I'm wrong.
These are flat. These are flat, straight
these ones are flat.
This room, there were 7 or 8 major rooms in this building that had this type of paneling. And these are just flat panels that made and tilted on an angle. And we had to come up with ways to make all these panels and understand the geometry and do it. It was, I had a great team. Oh, these actually curve. A lot of these panels curve and do it. And so I don't know how many of you folks build boats or do things, but there was a large discussion on how to do this. We created computer programs to understand the face of the panel. And I wanted the people that were working on the walls, that were creating the wall structure that we hung the panels on, to work from the same points that we did. And I proposed that I would, because I knew where it started on the floor, I knew where it ended on the ceiling, and I could make a stick of that curve and show them the face of the millwork, and they could measure back and put drywall up. Well, I was unsuccessful in my suggestion, and they went and did what they did. And the only way we could put it in was using that. And we had this whole system, and we basically had to reframe the rooms in order to hang our paneling to do this. That is a true knife edge that curves up. That kept me up many nights making that work well.
Now, in our earlier discussion, Jeff, you and I talked about this, and I had thought that you had made a solid curve on that knife point and then joined, so you had solid wood on the knife point and then paneling on the sides. But you pointed out to me that this is a 2-piece structure, and the 2 bevels come together to that
Correct.
knife edge. So that joinery in and of itself is the difficult thing, to get those 2 panels to come together and meet so perfectly in a compound curve.
Yes, so that is MDF, medium density fiberboard. It was all with vertical grain Doug fir veneer on the face, and holes drilled in it in the pattern that Frank Geary called out, and we would do that on each panel. So we did computer programs in order to do the panels on the curve. Then we would flatten them out so they could go on the CNC, and everything would be right when they hit the correct curve.
Now, everybody's heard of kerfing in order to bend a board. This, I would say, is extreme kerfing.
Yes, yes. So every place there isn't a hole on the back side of these panels is a kerf. So these were very flexible panels. I did not, there was no forming and no vacuum bagging, none of that.
No lamination.
No laminations, none of that. These just were floppy little panels that went together.
Now,
same room, a different angle.
Yeah, you can see the licos at the top. The licos are a type of light. The stage lighting up there, they're about 18 inches long to 24 inches long. So for the size of this, you can imagine this floating piece going up, and it's unbelievable that anybody, let alone design it, but could even conceive of constructing it. It's phenomenal.
I didn't know. I had a great team. I had a phenomenal team that would listen to my ideas, bounce ideas off. This is not me. This is a lot of people being very creative and being very helpful. And not one member of my team ever ever walked away from a challenge that I presented, and that's how this got done successfully.
Now, I'm going to take everybody to a different place. I mean, that's a phenomenal piece of work, but I think we're getting an understanding of not only what you learned design-wise, but, and then this is why we titled it Solving Problems, because they come to you and say, this is what we want to build, and then you have to figure out how the heck we're going to do it. So that's why, and I think you had mentioned that. So we're going to something new, and this is, I think there's a lot of people that are going to appreciate this. This is a more personal thing. It's equally as difficult, and I'll let you explain it.
Oh,
This is just
doesn't everybody build wooden bikes when they want a bike? So if you guys can picture or even know the children's story, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie. Well, I think that was my theme song in my head. I bought a new bicycle. I'm an active cyclist. I do triathlons, and it needed a water bottle cage. And I could spend $80 on this high-tech, very lightweight carbon water bottle frame, and now I make one. So I made a bunch of them. I had some fun making some water bottle cages. But a wooden water bottle cage really, really needs a wooden bike, doesn't it? Come on. So I went and made a wooden bike. Now, truth be told, I will tell the truth here. The bike failed in the sense that I certainly rode it a bit, but it has engineering problems, and I need to do a revision on it. And hopefully I will make another one that can actually be a little bit more dependable. It has some flex issues at the bottom bracket, but that was a lot of fun, a lot of computer design, and that computer design needed to be made into an object, and that was fun.
Which way is the grain running on this?
That's a glue up, Chet. I glued up curly maple veneer, and that's going actually the short grain way, but it doesn't matter. That's just veneer glued up to make those backstays.
And this is just a beautiful shot inside it, straight down.
Yeah, that's the seat post where it goes into the frame.
So how long did it take you to do that bicycle?
Oh, I don't look at time. I mean, I bet you that's a year and a half's worth of putting around doing their various things, because I would have at work when we had time carve me a form that I could press these in. That's all veneer. It's not solid. It's all veneer, 5-layer veneer tubes that I made up. So I made the bike in 2 halves and then glued it together and put the stays in.
I'm a little surprised you don't live in California, because this next project you did suits California, I think, more than Massachusetts.
This is called the most fun you can have with a hand plane. So I needed to make a surfboard. I mean, it's just a need. I'll just accept this need. So that's at work, at our CNC at work. And I was talking to my CNC engineer, because I said, hey, can you make me a couple of patterns? I'm going to trace them with a router, and I'm going to make these bits and pieces and glue up and make a surfboard. He says, no, I'll just cut all the wood on the CNC. It's no big deal. You sure? Yeah, you don't have to do that. I'll do it. So sure enough, I bought the wood, and he cut all the bits and pieces. We made a computer model of a surfboard and cut it into strips, the same as there's the surfboard. We cut it into strips. The surfboard's made of Western red cedar and ash. And the bits and pieces came off the CNC, and there's my daughter. And so we put it together, and then we had a fight because I glued it up. He said, bring it back. I want to carve it on the CNC. I said, no, I'm going to hand plane it. No, I want to carve it. And we literally had a fight. He wants to make another one so he can carve the whole thing and get it right on the CNC. But I hand planed that to shape, and that was probably the most fun I ever had with a hand plane.
So we're nearing the hour mark, which we've gone a little long, but I think we've covered almost everything. We didn't cover the cryogenics, which I think that maybe it would be nice if Jeffrey, if you would be willing to come back maybe and just talk about that. But Jeff is one of the earliest people that suggested using cryogenics to treat plane irons and chisels. And so he's a pioneer in that sense, but we don't really have too much to go into on cryogenics and using nitrogen for that purpose, but perhaps we could get him to come back. I want to thank you, Jeffrey, and for tolerating this awkwardness of doing this, but I hope you're okay with it. I think it came out all right. Now, we have a little custom with this group in that at a certain point, we do a toast to our speaker and to the bench. And so now if everybody will raise their glasses, I hope you remember to put your name in the chat if you want to have any questions for him, and then we'll open it up. But to Jeffrey Warshafsky, many thanks and appreciations, and to the bench.
Cheers.
There we go. And I have no idea if anybody put their names in the chats. I wasn't able to see that, but I think I can go back and look. Jeffrey, if you, at this point, I don't really see the chat, so maybe Shrenik can help me. If anybody, did anybody put in their name for questions?
Well, I popped my name in first.
Okay, well then we'll give it to Shrenik. Perfect time.
So Jeffrey, I already know you, but I'm curious. You do a lot of experiments as well, which you didn't really touch upon because of your curiosity, and I've been privy to some of your experiments on the Saturday call that we join on Hand Planes and Coffee, and I'm very curious what makes you experiment so much. And then secondly, you've got such a huge hive of people now that can join in with your experiments and help you.
And just before Jeffrey answers that, let me just add so everybody knows that on this other group, we have tested the angles of planes irons. We have tested, we're getting ready to do a test on sharpness. We've tested the movement of the frog forward and back and all of that. And we've done these tests, and then we come together and we talk about what we came up with. So Jeffrey, you want to answer Shrenik's?
Yeah, Shrink. I never solved some of the problems to my satisfaction when I was a plane maker. That's where some of the plane experiments you're seeing come from. I settled on a 45-degree bedding angle for my plane. I didn't come to a scientific realization what might be the best or better. So that drove that. And I like to challenge the norms. Why do we have such a narrow throat? What's it related to? Is it related to fine shavings? Is it related to thick shavings? What happens if you do it? And most folks would never back their frog off and go plain. Well, let's go do it. Let's see what happens. Makes great discussion. Well, what if the chip breaker isn't just perfectly right off the edge supporting it? Back that chip breaker off. What happens? What do you get? What are the results? Do you need this? So there are many norms that that I like to challenge. And the current test is just sharpening. Why do we all go to these incredible grits? Is there a real need? What's happening? And that will be a big surprise. So fantastic. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So Ted, you were next in the list. Is Ted Whitmer still
Jeffrey.
There he is.
Hey Ted.
It's about 6:30 in the morning here in sunny Guam. So I've got to pop off after this because I got to go to work. But I would like you to touch on your love of tools. As we can see behind you, that lovely wall of tools. What is your favorite tool that you do not collect?
My favorite tool that I do not collect. I don't know. I mean, my favorite tool is the tool I have in my hand. I like tools to fit in my hand. I'm only recent to collecting, Ted, to tell you the truth. Last maybe 5 or 6 years collecting and seeing stuff, and I've enjoyed the hunt. I found flea markets lately, so that's driven me. A favorite tool? No, I don't really have an answer for you that I don't collect. Sorry, maybe some Japanese saws, but nothing really. I can't answer.
That's great. So now we're going to jump to Greg Ricketts. And for all of you who don't know who he is the creator of the Plane Life, which is the alternate group like ours in the States. Greg,
Hey, great to see you, Jeff, and a wonderful program. Chet, really great job on the visuals there. It was great to see those pieces and hear some explanations behind them. Jeff, obviously you've worked with, many different species of woods. I'm curious if there's one that you've always wanted to work with or incorporate in a project, but you just haven't found the right project. And why is that a particular wood you're interested in?
Greg, I've had the great fortune to work with many, many woods over the years. In the 70s and 80s, exotics were much more prevalent. You could get them. One wood that sticks out that I did work that I don't think I'll ever do again is satinwood. It reminded me of coconut oil when I worked it. It had this wonderful aroma. A wood that I've never worked that I really want to, that I see a lot of people using that's not common, is boxwood. I think I'd like to make a project out of that, do something with that, find out the intricacies of that. And it's not a wood I've ever worked. So that would be the wood I would chase after to make something with.
That'd be great. Don Schwartz. Don Schwartz is next.
Sorry, I didn't realize you were requesting questions. I don't really have any questions. I just wanted to say I really appreciated the presentation. Thanks.
Oh, my pleasure. It was fun going back. I haven't paid a lot of attention to the stuff, and Chet made me focus on a lot of stuff I hadn't thought about in many, many years. It was enjoyable to put this together, and Chet was a great guide to put it together. Thank you.
So now Mitch Peacock.
Hi, Jeff. Good to speak to you again.
Thank you, Mitch.
It was a very interesting talk. Even though I heard some of it, I enjoyed hearing a lot of it again. I just want to thank you for that, and thank you, and tell everybody else about the talk you did for me, the tip talk, and to tell them that they can all see that on the Bench.Talk.101 YouTube channel. So thanks again, Jeff.
Oh, my pleasure. Mitch had asked me to do a little tip. It's up on the YouTube channel, and I'd be a proponent of using a bench stop when you're hand planing, just more efficient, better, and stuff like that. And I see too many people on the internet putting wood in a vise, and it's a pet peeve. So I thought it was a great one to do. Thanks, Mitch.
Cheers, Jeff.
Jeffrey Fowler and with my thanks for handing this over to me. I hope it worked out all right. But Jeffrey, question?
Oh, no, I didn't have a question, but it's really good, Jeffrey. I mean, it's great to hear. I didn't want to confuse everybody because Jeffrey and Jeffrey, all we need is, for us to call ourselves Jeff, and you can have Jeff 1, Jeff 2, and if we can get a third one, we can have Jeff 3, can't we? But there you go.
So Jim H, I'm assuming that's Jim Hendricks.
Yeah, yes, it is. Jeffrey, that was fantastic. The forms, I think most people here know that I like crazy forms, and are utterly amazed at the work that you've been doing, especially at the MIT architectural work. You mentioned boxwood. I think you need to get some. It's a wood that I almost use exclusively now for tool making, and I can only say that it is akin to a metal in its ability to be able to take shapes, take crispness, and you just look at some of the Japanese carvings that you can see and the intricacy. It is a material that you really need to get your hands on.
I'm definitely gonna do that. There's another wood I want to work as well, is mesquite. Now, mesquite has if I'm correct, is the most stable wood in the world, radially and tangentially. It practically doesn't move if you look at it on a chart. And as I make more things, I don't want to cut down rainforest trees. This is a North American wood, some in Mexico as well, some in the States. And it's another wood I want to explore to see what it works and how it does.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I also, I think probably that you're quite right there. And one thing you mentioned there was the fact that it grows in America and you're using a native wood, and that's another thing that needs exploring more. And that's what I prefer to do here. And we're lucky enough to have boxwood, or one of the best quality boxwood, the European boxwood of Buxus. So, you know, but if you're interested, we can give you a link to the guy that actually runs a boxwood plantation, and it's he's actually planting 10 times many more trees than he takes away. So, but he supplies musical instruments and tool makers, and also quite a few people in the States where you have to have it without the bark. But it is a completely, there are different grades of boxwood, and I would definitely recommend that. But that's all I really wanted to say. Definitely go ahead, and it would suit you perfectly.
Yes,
I will be exploring it. Thank you.
The last question we're going to have today, and then I'm going to have everyone retoast, because I did the toasting a little bit early, as pointed out to me. So I don't think any of us will take great issues with the fact that we may have to toast again. But let's take the last question from Josh Kingston, and we'll get back to our toasting. Josh?
Yeah, sorry, I had to unmute myself. So I guess now I have two questions. One is whether you've worked with dogwood, which is kind of it's hard to get in lumber form because it's an ornamental tree, but it's historically kind of America's boxwood substitute. And I've never worked with boxwood, but it's
I've
Massachusetts, maybe.
I'm sure I could find some harvested locally. There's enough growing all over the place. But no, I've not worked it. I've not searched it out. Is it a particularly stable, nice, dense wood?
It's I don't think it's very stable, but it is very, very dense. It's a pain in the ass to saw. It's very, very hard. It was used for mallets. And it's kind of a creamy white plain texture. So I guess my other question, which maybe is a weirder question, a lot of woodworkers spend a lot of time thinking about how things go together. Like they'll almost build the whole piece around the fact that they're going to be mortise and tenons in the legs or something like that. And you've worked with architects who are almost, in many cases, seem to be on the opposite extreme. Like there's just no, like here's what I want. I don't care how it's stuck together. Like you figure out how it's stuck together almost. And I wonder if going back and forth between, having the kind of contact with architects and contact with the woodworking design element has shifted your thought on kind of the importance of, or really how things go, or the balance, I guess, between how things go together and where the design starts. And
excellent question.
That's a complicated question.
Excellent question. What I find typically is architects don't understand the materials they're using as well as I would like. They pick and choose materials, and my first question would be, well, that material expands and contracts with changes in temperature. We need to incorporate this, and this to allow that in your design, and that's a visual element. I will talk to architects about visual components to their design, how it and the impact of the materials they're using, because those folks don't know the materials as well as we would know it. Oh, that material changes in relative humidity. It's wood. Oh, we're combining metal and wood. Well, one of them's moving with temperature. One of them's moving with humidity changes. The buildings do not control humidity. Temperature is turned down at night, turned down on weekend. We got movement happening everywhere. Let's do this, and this to accommodate the materials we're using, and it's a design element. I don't find they don't care about joinery. At that level, they don't. Craftsmen, on the other hand, are much more focused on the joinery, the mortise and tenon and dovetails or whatever they're doing. And I'm more of a proponent of hiding your joinery, not designing around your joinery, if that helps answer your question. Thanks.
Thank you.
Again, that was terrific. And if you want to try some boxwood, I'll be glad to send you some and some dogwood because I have quite a bit of both. But at this point, everybody's going to again raise their glasses to Jeffrey for his presentation and to the bench. Thank you, Jeff.
Guys, thank you very much. This has been
Thanks
awesome.
very much,
Thank
Jeff.
you.
Jeffrey on the bench. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Jeffrey on the bench.
Thank you.